The morning sky over Seoul erupted in silver light as massive ships broke through the clouds. Commander Park Jin-woo pressed his face against the reinforced glass of the United Defense Command Center, watching the alien vessels descend like graceful, metal birds. Each ship was the size of a city block, their surfaces smooth and curved like living things rather than machines. 238 years, whispered Dr. Kim Myra beside him. Her voice trembled slightly as she clutched her tablet. 238 years since we last saw ships like these. Jin-woo nodded grimly. Every person in the command center knew the story. Every child on Earth learned it in school. The benefactors had come in 2287 with promises of peace and prosperity. They had stayed for 14 years, and when they left, humanity had barely survived. The alien ships settled onto the landing platforms with barely a whisper of displaced air. Across the globe, identical scenes played out in New York, London, Tokyo, Lagos, and Sao Paulo. 6 ships, 6 continents. Just like before, Sir called Lieutenant Han Jisoo from her station. The aliens are requesting immediate communication with world leaders. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. Put them through, Jin-woo ordered. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a creature that made several people in the room step backward. The being stood nearly 3 meters tall, its skin shifting between blue and green like oil on water. Most disturbing were its eyes, not 2, but 5, arranged in a pattern across its elongated skull. When it spoke, its voice was melodic but somehow wrong, like a song played in the wrong key. "Greetings, children of Earth," the creature said. Its words perfectly clear despite coming through a small device attached to its throat. "I am Ambassador Velta of the Kithara Collective. We come bearing gifts for our younger brothers of Earth." In the Grand Assembly Hall of the United Nations, world leaders gathered in emergency session. President Lee Sun-ho of the Pacific Federation sat in the front row, his weathered face showing no emotion. Beside him, Chancellor Young Min-ho of the European Union tapped his fingers nervously on his tablet. Both men had written their doctoral dissertations on the benefactor crisis. They knew every detail of first contact, every promise made, every gift offered. The similarities were impossible to ignore. "We have traveled far to reach you," Ambassador Veltar continued. "Our scientists have developed medical technology that can end all disease on your world. Our engineers have created energy systems that will power your civilization for 1,000 years. Our ecological specialists have designed tools to heal your damaged environment." The promises hung in the air like a familiar nightmare. Chancellor Yang leaned forward. "These gifts you offer," he said carefully, "what do you ask in return?" All 5 of the aliens' eyes focused on him. "Nothing," Velta replied. "We seek only to help our younger siblings reach their full potential. We have done this for countless species across the galaxy. All have flourished under our guidance." President Lee stood slowly. "We are honored by your generosity, Ambassador Velta. However, we must deliberate on such momentous offerings. Surely you understand that accepting gifts of this magnitude requires careful consideration." For a moment, something flickered across the alien's face, an expression that might have been surprise, or perhaps annoyance. "Other species embrace our gifts immediately," Velta said. "They recognize the wisdom of accepting help from their elders. Why do you hesitate?" In the back of the assembly hall, Dr. Choi Daeon made careful notes on her tablet. As Earth's chief xenarchaeologist, she had spent her entire career studying the ruins left behind by the benefactors. She had crawled through their abandoned laboratories, analyzed their discarded technology, and pieced together the truth that history books only hinted at. The pressure was already beginning. She could hear it in the alien's voice, see it in the way its 5 eyes never seemed to blink all at once. The benefactors had started the same way, generous gifts offered freely, followed by gentle questions about why humanity was being so ungrateful. "We require time to consult with our people," President Lee said diplomatically. "Surely a species as advanced as yours understands the importance of democratic process." Ambassador Velta's skin shifted from blue-green to a deeper, more ominous shade. "Of course," it replied, "but do not wait too long. Your people suffer from diseases we could cure instantly. Your cities choke on pollution we could cleanse. Your world dies while you debate." As the transmission ended, the assembly hall erupted in whispered conversations. Some delegates argued for immediate acceptance. The climate crisis was worsening, and new pandemics emerged every few years. Others counseled caution, remembering the lessons of history. Dr. Choi Daeon remained seated as the others filed out, her fingers still moving across her tablet. She was composing an urgent message to archaeological teams around the world. If the Cathara truly were offering the same gifts as the benefactors, then humanity needed to remember not just what those gifts had promised, but what they had actually delivered. The silver ships sat silently on their landing platforms, waiting. Inside each one, beings with shifting skin and too many eyes watched the humans below with infinite patience. They had played this game before, on worlds whose names were now forgotten. They knew how it would end, but this time they had chosen the wrong species to test their patience against. Humanity had learned to remember. The morning mist clung to the ruins of New Geneva like a shroud, making the ancient alien structures look even more ghostly than usual. Dr. Choi Daeon pulled her jacket tighter as she walked through the excavation site, her breath forming small clouds in the cold air. 3 weeks had passed since the Cathara arrived, and she had barely slept since then. Her team had set up their equipment among the broken towers and collapsed walkways that the benefactors had left behind 3 centuries ago. The alien embassy had once been a marvel of advanced architecture, all flowing curves and impossible angles. Now it was a graveyard of shattered crystal and twisted metal, overgrown with vines and moss. Dr. Choi called her assistant, Dr. Lim Hunky, from inside one of the larger ruins. "You need to see this." Daeon hurried toward him, stepping carefully over the debris. Hunky was crouched beside a piece of equipment that had been buried under rubble for 2 centuries. His scanner was beeping rapidly, displaying readings that made Daeon's heart race. "The molecular signatures are identical," Hunky said, his voice tight with excitement and fear. "The Cathara medical nanobots used the same base programming as the benefactor healing pods we found last month." Daeon knelt beside him, taking the scanner to examine the readings herself. The numbers were undeniable. The tiny robots that the Cathara claimed could cure any disease were built using the exact same technology as the benefactor. Medical devices. She picked up a crystalline device from the rubble, turning it over in her hands. It was smooth and warm, to the touch, still functional after all these years. The benefactors had given humanity hundreds of these healing pods, promising they would end suffering forever. For a few years, they had seemed to work perfectly. Cancer disappeared overnight, broken bones healed in hours. Even old age seemed to slow down, but then the truth had emerged. The healing pods did more than cure disease. They rewrote human DNA, making subtle changes that created a biological dependency. Humans who used the pods regularly found they could not survive without them. Their immune systems weakened. Their bodies began to fail. The gift of healing had become a chain of slavery. "The same technology," Daeon whispered, staring at the device. "After all these years, they're using the same technology, high above Earth." The Cathara ships hung in orbit like silver daggers pointed at the planet's heart. Captain Park Ji-ho of the Space Defense Force read the latest transmission from the alien vessels, his jaw clenched with frustration. The messages arrived every day now, each one more demanding than the last. "Your people suffer from diseases we could cure instantly," Ambassador Veltar had said in yesterday's broadcast. "Your cities choke on pollution we could cleanse. Why do you let your species suffer when salvation is offered freely?" The alien's 5 eyes had seemed to stare directly through the screen, and Ji-ho had felt a chill run down his spine. The Cathara were no longer asking politely. They were demanding answers. On Earth's surface, cracks were beginning to show in humanity's united front. The African Federation, still struggling to recover from the devastating climate disasters of the 2480s, had publicly questioned the delay in accepting the Cathara gifts. Their representative to the United Nations had given a passionate speech about children dying from diseases that could be cured instantly. 3 of humanity's colony worlds had sent formal requests to accept Cathara aid independently. The colonists on Mars were facing an outbreak of lung rot, a disease that thrived in the planet's artificial atmosphere. The miners on Europa were dealing with radiation poisoning from their deep drilling operations. The agricultural stations around Jupiter were watching their crops fail as solar storms disrupted their growing systems. All of these problems could be solved with Cathara technology. All it would take was saying yes. But Dr. Choi Daeon knew the price of saying yes. She had seen it in the ruins of Melbourne, where her team had made the most disturbing discovery yet. Hidden beneath the collapsed remains of the Benefactor Research Facility, they had found equipment that was still functional after 2 centuries. The machines were beautiful things, all flowing metal and pulsing lights. When her team had carefully activated one of them, it had begun to work immediately. But instead of cleaning the air or healing the damaged ozone layer, it had started to change the atmosphere itself. "It's not restoring Earth's environment." Dr. Kim Soo-yang, her atmospheric specialist, had reported with horror in her voice. It's reshaping the atmosphere to match alien specifications. Look at these readings, it's increasing the methane levels and reducing the oxygen content. Dayan had watched the numbers climb on the monitors, her blood running cold. The terraforming equipment was not designed to help humans. It was designed to make Earth more suitable for the benefactors themselves. Now, standing in the ruins of New Geneva with identical Cathara technology in her hands, she finally understood the full scope of what they were facing. She activated her tablet's recording function, her voice steady, despite the fear coursing through her veins. Research log, day 21, she began. The evidence is conclusive. The Cathara are not a different species making similar offers. They are the same species, using the same technology, following the same pattern. She paused, looking up at the alien ships visible as tiny silver dots in the sky. They're not the same species, she whispered. They are the same species. The benefactors had returned to finish what they started. Deep beneath the Seoul Institute, Dr. Choi Daeon stood before the largest holographic display ever constructed. The underground laboratory hummed with energy as dozens of computers processed the data she had been collecting for weeks. Blue light filled the chamber, casting eerie shadows on the walls as three-dimensional images of alien technology rotated slowly in the air. Look at this, she said to her assembled team. Her finger traced along the holographic outline of a Cathara medical device. Now compare it to this. Another image appeared beside it, a benefactor healing pod from 3 centuries ago. The two devices were identical down to the smallest detail. Dr. Lim Hunky stepped closer, his eyes wide with amazement. The molecular structure is exactly the same, even the quantum signatures matched perfectly. Daeon nodded grimly. Every device, every piece of technology, every programming language, they're all identical. The Cathara didn't develop similar technology to the benefactors. They are the benefactors. The elevator doors opened with a soft hiss, and the emergency session of the World Council filed into the laboratory. President Lee Sun-ho led the group, followed by Prime Minister Kim Young-soo of the Korean Republic, Chancellor Yang Min-ho of the European Union, and a dozen other world leaders. Their faces were tense with worry and exhaustion. Show them, President Lee said quietly. Daeon activated the main display. The holographic images grew larger, filling the chamber with swirling patterns of light. Members of the World Council, she began. The evidence is undeniable. Analysis of the energy signatures proves these are the exact same beings. The Cathara are the benefactors, using a different name and slightly altered appearance. Prime Minister Kim Young-soo leaned forward, his brow furrowed with confusion. But Dr. Choi, the historical records show the benefactors helped dozens of species across the galaxy. They spoke of uplifting civilizations, of bringing peace and prosperity to countless worlds. Why would they change their approach? Their expression darkened. Because they didn't help them, Prime Minister, they never helped anyone. She gestured, and the hologram shifted to show a map of the galaxy. Hundreds of stars glowed in the darkness, connected by thin lines that showed the benefactors' claimed routes of exploration. I've been analyzing the star charts the benefactors left behind, she continued, cross-referencing with our deep space observations over the past century. She pointed to a cluster of red dots scattered across the map. 17 star systems that the benefactors claimed to have uplifted show no signs of advanced civilization. They're either dead worlds or primitive societies barely surviving. The room fell silent. Chancellor Yang's face went pale. Are you saying they destroyed those civilizations? I'm saying they consumed them, Daeon replied. Look at the pattern. The hologram zoomed in on one of the red dots. Kepler 44-b. The benefactors claimed to have helped this world achieve interstellar travel. Our deep space telescopes show a planet covered in ruins and a population that has regressed to pre-industrial technology. Another star system appeared, Tau Ceti E. According to benefactor records, they cured all disease on this world and gave them unlimited energy. Our observations show a dead world with no electromagnetic signatures, no cities, no technology, no life. Admiral Song Tajin of the Unified Space Command spoke first, his voice barely above a whisper. Are you suggesting I'm suggesting they're parasites, Daeon interrupted, her voice cutting through the silence like a blade. They arrive, offer gifts, gradually assume control, then drain the civilization and move on. The pattern is always the same: arrival, gifts, dependency, consumption, departure. The hologram showed the cycle playing out across the galaxy. World after world, species after species, all following the same tragic pattern. The benefactors would arrive with promises of help, slowly integrate their technology into the target civilization, create dependency, then systematically drain the world's resources and population before moving on to the next victim. But why did they leave Earth? Asked President Lee. If this is their pattern, why didn't they complete the cycle here? Dayan was about to answer when alarms began blaring throughout the laboratory. Red lights flashed as alerts appeared on every screen. The emergency communication system crackled to life with reports from around the globe. Test Site Alpha in Nevada reporting anomalous activity. Came the first report. The Cathara medical nanobots are attempting to access global health networks without authorization. Test Site Bravo in Scotland confirms similar activity. Followed another voice. The energy converters are drawing power from the European grid instead of providing it. Test Site Charlie in Australia reports atmospheric changes. A third voice added urgently. The terraforming tools are releasing atmospheric processors designed for alien physiology, not human. Admiral Song stared at the displays in horror. They're not waiting for our acceptance anymore. They're activating their systems without permission. They're taking what they want, President Lee said quietly. But Dr. Choi Daeon smiled grimly, her eyes reflecting the red warning lights flashing around the chamber. Then it's time they learned why the benefactors really left Earth. She turned to face the assembled leaders. We've been preparing for this moment for 200 years. The benefactors didn't leave because they were finished with us. They left because humanity made them leave. The chamber fell silent, except for the continuing alarms. In the distance, they could hear the rumble of machinery starting up deep beneath the ground. Humanity's secret was about to be revealed. The elevator descended for what felt like an eternity, dropping through layers of rock and steel deep beneath the Himalayan mountains. Admiral Song Taejan watched the numbers on the display climb higher. As they went deeper underground, level 50, level 100, level 150. Finally, at level 200, the doors opened with a soft whisper. What lay beyond took his breath away. The chamber stretched out before them like an underground city, its ceiling lost in darkness far above. Massive structures filled the space, each one the size of a building. Strange lights pulsed along their surfaces in patterns that seemed almost alive. The air hummed with barely contained energy, and the floor vibrated slightly beneath their feet. "Welcome to Project Remembrance," Admiral Song said to the assembled commanders who had followed him down. Their faces showed the same awe and shock he had felt when he first saw this place years ago. Commander Park Jinwoo stepped forward, his eyes wide as he stared at the towering machines around them. "How long has this been here?" Construction began. "In 2302, Admiral Song replied, walking toward the nearest structure. 1 year after the benefactors vanished. When the benefactors left Earth, they didn't just leave behind ruins and broken promises, they left behind their own technology. Humanity spent the next 200 years not just studying it, but improving it." The sound of footsteps echoed through the chamber as Dr. Namsora approached them. She was a small woman with silver hair and intense eyes, wearing the simple gray uniform of the project engineers. Despite her modest appearance, she was one of the most brilliant minds on Earth. "All this time, we've been preparing for their return," Commander Park said, still staring at the massive constructs. Dr. Namsora shook her head. "Not just their return, Commander. We've been preparing to end their cycle permanently." She gestured to the machines around them. "Every piece of benefactor technology left behind on Earth was brought here. We took it apart, studied it, learned how it worked. Then we built something better." The elevator doors opened again, and Dr. Choi Daeon stepped out, carrying a tablet filled with data from the surface. Her face was grim as she joined the group. "The situation is escalating," she reported. "The Cathara are no longer pretending to wait for our permission. Their systems are activating worldwide." Admiral Song nodded. "Tell them what we discovered." Dr. Choi Daeon looked around at the assembled commanders. The Cathara made a crucial error in their assessment of humanity. Unlike the other species they encountered, humans maintained detailed records of every interaction with the benefactors. More importantly, we learned from them. She activated her tablet, and holographic displays appeared in the air around them. The benefactors, the Cathara nomads, they move from species to species, consuming civilizations over decades before moving on. Their method is always the same. They arrive, offer gifts, create dependency, then drain the world's resources and population, but they've never encountered a species that remembered them," Dr. Namsora added. "Every other civilization they attacked was caught off guard. They had no warning, no time to prepare." Above ground, the Cathara ships were beginning their next phase. Their gifts were no longer gifts but invasive systems, attempting to integrate with Earth's infrastructure. The medical nanobots were trying to rewrite human DNA, just as they had centuries ago. The energy systems were preparing to drain Earth's power grid. The terraforming tools were starting to alter the atmosphere to make it more suitable for alien life. But this time, humanity was ready. Every system they activate sends data back to Earth's hidden networks. Dr. Namsora explained, her fingers dancing across a control panel. Networks that have been designed specifically to turn the benefactor's own technology against them. The displays around them lit up with information streaming in from around the globe. Every time a Cathara device came online, it connected to what it thought was Earth's primitive communication network. Instead, it was connecting to a trap that had been 2 centuries in the making. They think they're conquering us, Admiral Song said, watching the displays as Cathara systems came online worldwide. They don't realize they're walking into a trap we've spent 2 centuries building. Commander Park studied the data flowing across the screens. What exactly are we doing to them? Dr. Namsora smiled for the first time since he had met her. We're giving them a taste of their own medicine. Every piece of technology they've deployed on Earth is now under our control. Their medical nanobots, their energy converters, their terraforming tools, all of it is connected to our network now. But that's not the best part. Dr. Choi Dayan added, we've been tracking their movements across the galaxy for 2 centuries. We know which worlds they've attacked, which civilizations they've destroyed, and we've been preparing a message for them. The massive structures around them began to glow brighter, their lights pulsing in sync with each other. The floor vibrated more strongly, and the air itself seemed to thrum with power. All systems are receiving their signals, Dr. Namsora reported, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what they were about to do. The trap is primed. Admiral Song looked around, at his commanders, then up at the ceiling, imagining the alien ships floating in orbit above them. Then let's remind them why they left Earth the first time, he commanded, and make sure they never threaten another species again. The activation sequence began at exactly 1430 Seoul time. The world changed forever in the depths of the Himalayan defense complex. Dr. Namsora's finger hovered over the activation button. Around her, dozens of technicians sat at their stations, their faces tense with anticipation. The massive machines that filled the underground chamber hummed with barely contained energy, their lights pulsing faster and faster. All systems ready, she announced, beginning activation sequence. She pressed the button. Across Earth, every piece of Cathara technology that had been deployed suddenly stopped working the way it was supposed to. The medical nanobots that had been trying to rewrite human DNA stopped their attack and began doing something completely different. Instead of changing human genetics, they started broadcasting information about the Cathara themselves, their real genetic structure, their technology, their true nature. The energy converters that had been secretly draining power from Earth's electrical grid reversed their function. Instead of stealing energy, they began amplifying and transmitting a signal that had been building for 2 centuries. The terraforming tools that had been changing Earth's atmosphere to suit alien life stopped their work and joined the broadcast. In orbit above Earth, the 6 Cathara ships suddenly found themselves in trouble. Their own systems began turning against them, controlled by the very technology they had tried to use to conquer humanity. Warning lights flashed throughout their vessels as their computers reported system after system going offline. Admiral Song Taijin's voice reached them through their own communication networks.com and clear. Cathara vessels, this is Earth Defense Command. We know who you are. We know what you've done, and now so does the galaxy. The signal that Earth transmitted was not a weapon, but something far more devastating to the Cathara information. The complete record of their methods, their technology, their pattern of conquest and consumption. It reached every civilization, within 100 light-years instantly. Carried by the quantum communication network the Cathara themselves had established across the galaxy, Dr. Choi Daeon watched from the command center as responses began flooding in. The communication screens lit up with incoming transmissions from dozens of star systems, species after species that had been contacted by the Cathara recently. Others centuries ago began responding with their own evidence, their own warnings. The Zephyrian Collective confirms the pattern, reported Commander Park Jinwoo, reading from his display. They're transmitting records of Cathara contact from 50 years ago. The aliens offered them the same gifts: medical technology, energy, systems, terraforming tools. The Andorian Federation is transmitting similar historical records, added Lieutenant Han Jisoo. They have documentation of Cathara visits going back 200 years. The Tau Ceti colonies are reporting Cathara ships in their system fled immediately upon receiving our signal. Called out another technician. But the most significant response came from the Vega system. Transmitted in broken standard language. This is the remnant of Kepler-4 for to be. We have survived. We have waited. We join Earth's warning. Dr. Dayon felt tears in her eyes as she read the message. Kepler 442b was one of the worlds she had identified as a victim of the Cathara. She had thought it was completely dead, but somehow, some of its people had survived. The Cathara ambassador's final message was transmitted on all frequencies, its voice filled with rage and frustration. You have doomed your species, humans. The galaxy will know you as the destroyers of peace. Dr. Namsora smiled as she activated the communication system to reply. The galaxy will know us as the ones who ended your cycle of destruction. As the Cathara ships departed Earth's system, their engines straining to escape, they found themselves pursued not by human vessels, but by a coalition of species they had attempted to conquer over the centuries. Ships from a dozen different worlds converged on Earth's solar system, all united by a single purpose, to make sure the Cathara could never hurt anyone again. The hunters had become the hunted. In the months that followed, Earth became the center of a new galactic alliance, not of conquest, but of protection. The technologies humanity had developed to counter the Cathara were shared freely with other species. The warning network expanded, creating a galaxy-wide defense against parasitic civilizations. Dr. Choi Dayon stood in her laboratory, now converted to a center for galactic communication, reading the latest transmissions from across the galaxy. Her small underground lab had become the hub of an interstellar network dedicated to protecting young civilizations from species like the Cathara. Earth, this is New Centauri. Read one message. We have a young species requesting first contact. We're sending them your protocols for evaluation. Thank you for showing us how to give the right kind of gifts. Another transmission came from the Vega system, Kepler 442b reporting. Our population has grown to 10,000 survivors. We are ready to help protect other worlds from the parasites. Dayan smiled as she typed her response. Humanity had learned the greatest lesson of all. The best gift you can give to another species is not technology, but the wisdom to recognize when gifts come with chains. Above ground, children played in parks under alien stars, their laughter carrying on the wind. They would grow up in a galaxy where species protected each other instead of preying on each other. They would know that sometimes the greatest victory comes not from fighting, but from remembering. The Cathara were gone, but their legacy lived on, not as conquerors, but as a reminder of what happens when civilizations forget to ask the right questions about gifts that seem too good to be true.